Now, if you struggle to explain your offering, if it's too complicated, too long-winded, people just don't get it, then this is for you. I've spent my life, no, that's not right. I've spent the last 8 years, feels like my life, the last 8 years building a business, which incidentally is called Clear Sales Message, where I help people to explain what they do for a living, which we might know as your value proposition, but just communicating the value that you have to offer, because selling is about communication. It's about finding a connection point, connecting with people, but they have to understand what you're selling to them. One of my main mantras is if they don't understand it, they can't buy it. Not they won't, they can't buy it. So in this video, I'm going to run you through 2 of the fundamental steps that you need to take in order to create a clear sales message, and 2 of the fundamental things that you need to consider, which perhaps respectfully you haven't considered yet, and maybe this is why you're finding it a bit challenging to get your point across and for people to really understand what you're offering. So the first thing we need to do is to define the problem that you solve, or the problems. What is it that you solve for your buyer? Why do they need you in the first place? What's happening for them? For me, it's the fact that it's very hard to communicate to sell. It's hard to explain some offerings, and if people don't understand it, they're not going to buy it from you. So this is the basic kind of issue challenge that I solve for my clients. What do you solve for your clients? Now, it doesn't matter how articulate you are at this point, but you need to have a good answer to the question of what's the problem that you actually solve. Many of the businesses that I come across really struggle even at this point, which is crazy because you think their product or service exists to solve a problem, surely. And if you need help on this, look at what you're doing, and the inverse is true. So I'm making it easier to communicate your offering. So what's the problem? It's hard to communicate your offering. So whatever the upside you're providing to somebody, the inverse of that is the downside. And that's usually a good way to find out what is the problem, or what are the problems that you're solving. Once you're a bit clear on that, and let me be clear with you that your ability to articulate the problem you solve indicates your ability to solve the problem. So if somebody asks you about this and you can't communicate it clearly, even though you can actually do the work and solve the problem, and I'm sure you can, the fact you can't communicate it, you can't explain it, that's off-putting, and that's going to cost you the business. And this is down to something called correlation and causation. I make the very logical but flawed assumption that if you can't explain to me what you're doing, then how could you possibly do it? Which makes sense, doesn't it? But of course, it's not true, because communication is an entirely different skill set to whatever the nature of your product or service actually is. I digress. So define the problem you solve. Then we need to name it. The fact that it has a name is the most important thing. But if you can use a name that really kind of nods to your buyer and says, hey, I understand you, I get you. If we can use their language, their terminology, or use it, their perspective, anything that's going to make them feel heard and recognized and relevant. Doesn't have to be more complicated. A very simple strategy here is the something problem, the confidence problem, the dating problem, the six-pack problem, whatever it happens to be. And you can flick out the word problem for challenge, trap, cycle, lots of different things. For me, if I was pushed, I'd say the messaging problem, or really the confidence problem, because a lot of my clients aren't very confident when they're selling because they don't know what to say. They have the answers. So that's really what I'm doing for them. But naming the problem is an exceptional move that's going to help people to understand what you're doing better, but also trust you and connect with you, which is very, very important too. But if they don't understand it, they can't buy it. So we'll start there. Then we look at what causes the problem. So what precedes it? So if you've got a problem with messaging, with communicating your offering, well, why? What causes that? Now, it could be that you have a technical offering. It could be that it's got different uses. You haven't decided on what you're going to use it for, etc. It could have to translate into multiple languages, a number of different things. But if you note down and silo out, here are the things that cause a problem, this allows you then to better communicate with and connect with, let's be honest, your buyer. So we're solving the blah blah problem for you, the messaging problem. Now I know if you've got the messaging problem, it's probably because this is happening and this is happening. Am I right? Oh my God, yeah, how did you know that? It's very common, so don't worry. And what we're going to be doing here, all the points really, is normalizing for the client. So they're coming to you thinking they're extremely special and they've got this really difficult problem. It's insurmountable. What are we going to do? And we're normalizing it for them, saying, look, this is no challenge. We see this kind of stuff all the time, not in a condescending way, of course. We see this stuff all the time. Let me tell you how we're going to do it. But I'm guessing it's caused by this, because what causes the problem will also impact the solution, one would expect. The final thing to consider here in defining the problem that you solve are the failed attempts. So did they go on YouTube? Did they buy a book? Did they try and do it themselves? You might go on YouTube to look up how to fix your toilet, but I wouldn't buy a book on it, for example. So if you know the failed attempts that they've had in solving it, because guess what? You're not their first port of call in solving this problem. It's very unlikely you are. If you can then communicate about those failed attempts, again, you're demonstrating understanding, experience, expertise, all this lovely stuff we want to see, and it makes it really compelling. And this isn't because we're using manipulation or trick or anything else. It's just because we're really good at what we do, and we've taken the time to understand how to be really good at communicating what we do and reassuring our buyer that we're the right choice. So, defining the problem. Step 1. And creating a clear sales message. What's the problem that you solve? Name it. What causes the problem? What failed attempts are there? There's lots of other factors you can consider, but if you nail those, even if you nail the first one, defining the problem that you solve, you'll be streets ahead of 95% of your competition who haven't taken the time to do this because they haven't really seen the value in it, to be honest with you. Secondly, is then connecting your solution to the problem, just connecting the dots. So we go from what they want or the problem they're facing. So you've got a leaky toilet, or you've got this, you can't do that, and blah, blah, blah. That's interesting, because with our solution, our offering, we'll do this with this part of our offering. We'll do that with that part of our offering, and then we'll do that with that part of our offering. So rather than just saying, hey, would you like to buy this? We're saying, look, you should probably buy this because I'll solve that problem, and this bit will solve that problem. And we're just connecting the dots, and we're doing the thinking. We don't really want our buyers to be thinking too much. And that's not because we're going to somehow push them into doing something they don't want to do. Absolutely not. This is in the interest of the path of least resistance. If I can guide you and lead you and tell you, you've got those 3 problems, they're solved with this solution, it's what you want to hear, isn't it? It's reassuring, and that's how you sell stuff. You reassure people that you can solve their problem and connect the dots for them. What that means is another great way of doing this, because in the moment, I might be telling you this mouse, and I'm explaining things to you, and it's got a charging port, and it's got this, and it's got that, and I get all technical about it, and I can feel you glazing over, just drifting away there. And I'm sure you've had this before. I certainly have. Where you're talking to people and you're like, oh no, in a monologue, of course. Oh no, I'm talking about things I don't care about. I'm losing them. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What that means is that's our bridge. That's how we get them back. So we tend to focus, and yes, my graphics are awesome. Thank you. We tend to focus on features, the boring stuff, because I'm really excited about this mouse because blah, blah, blah. So the features, the boring stuff, that's the stuff they need. It's the practical detail. It's not exciting, ultimately. But as sellers, we focus on that because it's most relevant and exciting to us, because that's the product that I'm selling. As a buyer, you're focused on the benefit, you're focused on what you want, and generally there's a feeling or an emotion attached to that. And we bridge that gap with what that means is. So the feature of this mouse, and this is an Apple mouse, it's that classic thing of the feature of this mouse is, it has a little charging port there. So the benefit is you can't use it while it's charging. Which isn't a benefit, of course, but you get the point. So here is the characteristic. What that means is, so it's the connecting the dots thing. What that means is, blah, we're putting it into the real world for them. We're doing the thinking for them. We're helping them to understand us. We're making ourselves as easy to buy from as possible. And it comes back to this thing. Often I talk about selling the destination, not the journey. So everybody wants a holiday. Nobody wants to buy a plane seat. And if you ask the question accordingly, you'll get 2 very different answers. Because on the left, that's actually what you're going to get from Singapore Airlines, I'm sure, if you're flying economy in particular. Doesn't look that exciting, does it? But what you want on the right there, Australia, that's actually why you're buying the ticket. That's what you're looking for. So when it comes to creating a clear sales message, we've got to do this. We've got to connect the dots for our buyer, connect our solution, and we've also got to define the problem that we solve. I'll catch you in the next one.